Review of the Supreme Court's judgment which quashed the Tamale High Court order for a rerun of the Kpandai parliamentary election. We'll engage that shortly. Also, as NPP prepares for its flag-bearer election over the weekend, we'll touch base with the party as GHOne cautions against attacks on journalists during the process. Also, Member of Parliament for Gumwa Central Kwame Asariobeng calls for removal of presidential term limits to allow presidents contest indefinitely. In business this morning, Ghana Union of Traders Association expressed dissatisfaction with government's implementation of the local cargo remaining sanctions imposed on Guinea following the 2021 military coup after the recent election of former junta leader Mamadi Doumbouya. Well, I invite you to stay with me because I've got details of these stories and many more in the next hour. Well, grateful for your company this morning. I am Joshua Kodjo Mensah. The details. The Supreme Court's 4-1 majority decision, which quashed the High Court in Tamale's judgment that nullified the 2024 Kpandai constituency parliamentary election, has drawn mixed reactions from the general public. You recall that the panel of 5, presided over by Justice Gabriel Poamang, also ordered that all consequential orders made, including orders to the Electoral Commission to conduct a rerun, have also been quashed. Justice Poamang, who dissented, said the reasoning of the majority justices Amadou Tanko, Emmanuel Yoni-Kulende, Samuel Esiedu, and Henry Anthony Kofi would be ready by February 6, 2026.
5-member panel of the Supreme Court has, by a 4-1 majority decision, quashed the decision of the Tamale High Court to nullify the Kpandai parliamentary election results. What the court is saying is that, upon considering the evidence on record, the court has made the order to reverse all orders made by the High Court, including the order to rerun. What it means is that the decision or the status of the Kpandai parliamentary election, as per the declaration made by the EC after the 2024 election, still stands. The NDC, led by Roxanne Nelson Dafiamako, a spokesperson, a legal member of the NDC, says that on the 6th of February, after obtaining the decision of the court, they will advise themselves as to whether to seek a review or not.
The ruling of the court will be filed according to the court's own decision by the 6th of February. When we obtain the ruling, and that's a certified true copy, and we study it, we will advise ourselves. There's a review option. So this matter is not ended. Nindam shouldn't think that it is over. The MPP shouldn't think that it is over. It is not over.
Gary Nimakun has also been acknowledging the decision of the Apex Court.
You see, when you come to court and a decision goes whether one way or the other, you take a legal route. What we did as a party, we took a legal route, and the court has said that. So that should be it.
But the man himself, the MP, who is at the center of this whole controversy, has these words to share.
For the ruling, because it's clear that the people wanted to change the will of the people of Kpandai, but the Supreme Court has affirmed the will of the people, and I'm most grateful to them. I also want to thank the party from the head to the bottom, that is national, regional, and the constituency, for the support they've given me.
After 6th February, knowing the reasoning assigned to the decision, especially by the majority side, the way will become clear, especially for the NDC. From the Supreme Court here in Accra, Mutala Inusa, GHOne.
Well, reacting to this development, constitutional lawyer Justice Abdullahi has described the court's decision as a legally sound process. Now, according to him, the action was not an appeal, but a judicial review, which in law completely nullifies the High Court's decision and reinforces the authority of the Supreme Court. He believes it is a right for the NDC to seek a review of the Supreme Court's judgment.
Whatever decision that was made by the High Court of Tamale does not exist. In fact, it's as if it never even happened.
Right.
So this is not an appeal. So usually if you go on appeal, you overturn decisions. But this one is not an appeal. This one is a judicial review. And judicial review literally erases everything else that happened prior to its invocation. And so it's as if the High Court decision never happened. If you want to put it another way, it means that the High Court's decision was completely unlawful. It went straight in, contrary to the laws, and establishments that we are used to till this point. I was really hoping to see maybe a 3-2 decision to know exactly what would whether the minority or the majority would say about the two gazette notification, because now the two have become the bone of contention. The Supreme Court has preferred one over the other, and the one that it has preferred is consistent with its earlier position, as I've indicated earlier. So, for us, the consistency is good, and it reinforces our rule of law and our tenacity to the principles of law as we know it to be.
Well, the area where this whole issue is about is Kpandai. So let's get there and engage Samuel Kisi to get to understand exactly what the situation there is. Our reporter Samuel Kisi has joined me via Zoom. Samuel, thank you so much for joining. So really, what's the mood in Kpandai after the judgment from the Supreme Court yesterday?
Okay, since yesterday, Kpandai have been turned to brew. Was since 24th November when the Tamale High Court have ruled that we should go for a round. Kpandai have been in the story up to date. So people of Kpandai, especially in MPP, have waited to get this victory. After yesterday, when the announcement came that Matthew will continue to be the MP for Kpandai, for MPP supporters and also Matthew supporters are happy and they are jubilating in town. Because this is what they are waiting for, thinking that what the NDC candidate sent to Tamale High Court and the ruling that came wasn't in their favor and they was not happy, and they think that the ruling didn't go well. And most important, when you get closer to them, when they are telling us that for the gazetting day was 24th December 2024, but Mensah filed this application at the Tamale High Court on 25th January 2025.
Right.
So looking at the 21 mandatory dates, it has expired. So they want the Supreme Court to quash everything. So for now, Kpandai, either rerun or no rerun, the Supreme Court have just brought the final conclusion that the MPP candidate Matthew Nyindam will continue to be the MP for Kpandai. For the MPP, they are happy, and when you go to the street of Kpandai, they are jubilating and are happy to wait for their candidate or the MP to return from Accra today.
But then we know that the NDC has given indication that they are waiting for the full reasoning of the court's judgment to be able to determine the way forward. They say that, well, this is not the end of the matter. How are the NDC in the area also reacting to the development?
Some NDC went get closer. When you get closer to them and you ask them, they think that that's the final because Supreme Court is the higher court that we have in Ghana here, and it have taken its decision, and nothing can be changed. The only thing NDC can do or their party can do now is to go for review, and that review will not also favor them. The story will not turn. The Supreme Court will not also change his decision. For NDC in Kpandai. They have given up, but some people say think that February 16, when they really come out and the documents are being given to them, maybe there is a way forward they can go. Because yesterday, listened to one of the executive of NDC, Rashid Tamko, who people call him computer man, clarify things on air that there was some polling station that recorded about 1,000 votes. So they think that they have to go details and have some way out to solve this problem. Okay. But for MPP, they think that it is over. There is no polling station in Kpandai here that recorded 1,000 or more than 1,000 votes in the constituency during the 2024 election. So everybody in Kpandai have now relaxed. NDC, most of them have given up. But for the MPP, up to date, they are still jubilating, playing jams, motor riding, and other things in town. Right. So for Kpandai, I think everything is in order.
Very well. Samo, thank you so much for the updates there. But then some residents in Kpandai have also been reacting to the judgment from the Supreme Court yesterday.
So kwa di manya kuponi sa ukrom telefono nya kupon siram nanso mingiri sai
Also, joy on the faces of NPP supporters in Kpandai, and I will bring you more from there. But let's still stay around issues that revolve around the courts, because former Deputy Executive Director of the National Service Authority, Mensah, has asked the High Court in Accra to refer provisions in the practice direction on disclosures to the Supreme Court for interpretation. Now, according to her, the directive, which allows the court to order an accused to file a list and addresses of witnesses he or she may rely on during the case management conference stage, is inconsistent with Articles 19(2)C and E of the 1992 Constitution. The former NSA Executive Director wants her trial before Justice Audrey Kokuvite put on hold for a referral to the Supreme Court before the trial on 6 counts of charges, including stealing proceeds. Now, the state, through the Director of Public Prosecutions, Mrs. GHOne Atakra Obobisa, led by Deputy Attorney General Justice Dr. Mensah, has vehemently opposed the request. Now, we'll get to know more from our legal affairs correspondent, Mutala Inusa, who has joined me via phone with details. Mutala, so break it down for me. What are the requests that, of course, Mensah is putting forward?
Well, Joshua Kodjo Mensah, is before the court on 6 counts of charges, including stealing. Now, the trial has begun with the first prosecution witness in the box testifying, but through her lawyers led by Gary Dimakun, they have filed an application. Remember that during the concluding part of case management conference, Justice Audrey Kokuvite, as part of others, asked that Gifty Owari file list of witnesses and their addresses that she may rely on at the time and in the course of the trial, should it become necessary that the court call upon her to open her defense after prosecution close its case. This upon the order, her lawyers have filed a motion asking that if you look at the provisions in the practice direction that compel or ask the court to compel or ask an accused person to file lists and addresses of witness statements, it is more or less asking the point, making the point that the accused person is guilty of the crime, because it is more like it's prejudicing the matter. And so it is, in their view, they believe that provision in the practice direction, that provision in the disclosure processes, as it were, is inconsistent with provisions of Article 19 and its related provisions. And so they want the High Court to refer the matter to the Supreme Court, because once an issue of interpretation arises in a matter of such nature, it is the Supreme Court that has to interpret. And so their prayer is that the High Court halt the trial, refer that provision that they are complaining about to the Supreme Court, for the Supreme Court to put a daylight on it. Whatever the Supreme Court says is what will work. The state, represented by the Director of Public Prosecution, Mr. GHOne, in fact, she was led by Deputy Attorney General Dr. Justice Mensah, vehemently opposed to that request by way of responding on the point of law. And the argument was to the effect that if you look at the provisions made in the practice direction that the lawyers are complaining about, in fact, it actually gives much more benefit to an accused person who is before the court. One, a situation where an accused person at the conclusion of prosecution's case, where the court finds that there is a prima facie and the accused is supposed to open his defense. This is where the court, or if there is any witness who will not be willing to come and testify, the court then can make enough ground. The court then can make some assistance by way of compelling those witnesses to come. So the provision where an accused person is asked to file a list of witnesses and their respective addresses, it is one that is rather geared towards assisting an accused person. It won't also delay the trial. And one of the things that they also raised was that the order of the court was too early. The order of the court was too early, and so they ought to be given adequate time and facility. They make the point that prosecution has the onus to prove the guilt, and so the whole burden lies on the prosecution, and therefore their position is that that request should not be accepted because there's nothing that warrants the Supreme Court to interpret. The court has since adjourned the matter to the 10th of February for a determination on that.
Vera Mutala, grateful for the update there. Now, the leadership of the Ghana Journalists Association has called on the New Patriotic Party, and in particular, all 5 aspirants in the upcoming 31st January 2026 flag-bearer primaries to advise their supporters against attacking and intimidating journalists while they discharge their lawful duties. Addressing the media, President of the GHOne, Albert Kwabena, reiterated the need for the safety of journalists when covering events of national importance without interference from the public.
The GHOne reiterates its call on the leadership of the New Patriotic Party to take full responsibility for the safety of journalists during its upcoming presidential primary to elect a flag bearer. We urge the party to clearly and publicly caution its supporters against attacking, intimidating, or obstructing journalists who will be deployed to cover the process. Political competition must never be allowed to degenerate into violence against the media. The GHOne will be actively monitoring the entire election process through our regional structures across the country and will not hesitate to name and shame any individual or group that assault journalists in the course of this assignment.
Well, let's speak to the New Patriotic Party and get to understand exactly what measures they have put in place. And, of course, Richard Ahiagba has joined us on the phone lines now. Mr. Ahiagba, thank you so much for joining us. So what mechanisms have been put in place to ensure that we have an event-free process across the various constituencies on Saturday?
Oh, thank you, and good morning, viewers. The election, as you may have followed, effectively by the Electoral Commission and Ghana Police Service. So that is the arrangement we have put in place. The party has no role. The party has not undertaken in the matter, as it were. It is entirely in the hands of Ghana Police. The party deliberately have taken steps, and if you would hear, that there's going to be no party internal security presence allowed, no macho men allowed by any means. And so the election, the mechanism we have put in place to ensure an event free is to hand complete control to the Electoral Commission and Ghana Police Service.
Right. I get that bit, but there was a reason I believe you got all the 5 aspirants to sign the peace pact, which of course we know is not necessarily, we have been told that it's not necessarily something that the aspirants really are bound by, even though they have committed to it. But then, in terms of the party supporters... Hello,
they are not bound by it.
No, so they're saying it's not something that legally the party can take them on. Is that the case? Is that not the case?
They are bound by it. Whenever you sign to a document, you are affirming that you would operate by the terms of it.
But the effect is persuasive. Isn't that the case?
No, well, you are talking about legal. Anybody, you can actually take somebody on legally for having created an impression for you to adhere to the content of a document if they don't. But if you want, the impact of it is morally convicting. If you, in the full glare of the people of Ghana, find that you will accept the results, you think the process has been free and fair, and that you will be the eventual winner, and then you do otherwise, your integrity will be called to question. You should be morally charged for having reneged on a commitment. So it's binding. You have to argue the legal regime that can hold people accountable. But I think that if you want to push that, you can, because it's an act of commitment.
Okay.
And when you renege on it, there should be social consequences for it, even legal, if you want to.
But then with the supporters, they have not signed any peace pact. So how are you conditioning the supporters to also accept the outcomes or the outcome on Saturday? Because really, it's when we get to the counting and, of course, winners are mentioned. That's where we see some level of discontent, which gives rise.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Well, you see, the leaders, that's how democracy works, right? You funnel down to the arrowhead. So the leaders who have signed it on behalf of their supporters. So the good behavior expected of the leaders is supposed to be modeled for their followers. So that's really what you're going to get. When the President of the Republic goes to sign a contract on behalf of Ghana, he signed it for all of us. Subsequent governments must adhere and deliver the terms of that contract. So that's how it works. So the leaders haven't signed it. It's a commitment they have made on behalf of their followers to be exemplary and of good behavior.
So the commitment you are also giving us today is that we are very likely to see an event-free process on Saturday.
I probably want to encourage you to talk to the police and ask these specific questions, because we have surrendered the security and therefore the freeness of the event and the safety of journalists who participate to report on the election to the police. And there isn't going to be any party presence, for which reason I should give you assurance. But Ghana Police should be the one you pose this question.
But it's your election, Mr. Ahiagba, it's your election, and you have confidence in the police.
It's our election which we have surrendered to the police to provide security.
Because you have confidence in the police, right?
Sorry?
Because you have confidence in the police.
You should. You should have confidence in the police, don't you?
I do.
Okay, I do too, and that's why we brought them in. So the question of confidence is not for me to answer for you, but it's for you to determine that if you have confidence in the police. Because the last time, and I think this question is relevant, because the last time we had a by-election in Ablekuma North, you saw how police were out there in a ring with your colleagues, beating them up and down. So maybe if you want any assurances, you should call the police and ask them to assure you that this time they won't beat your fellow journalists when they come to simply do the task they are required to do in our democracy by reporting and ensuring that Ghanaians have visibility.
Very well. Richard, thank you so much for speaking with us. That's our Director of Communications for the New Patriotic Party, Richard Ahiagba. But still within the NPP, the Utu Senya East Constituency Secretary of the party, Michael Adi, has assured delegates of a peaceful presidential primary as the party prepares to elect its flag bearer on January 31 and assures that the party is ready to rally behind whoever emerges as flag bearer to reclaim power in the 2028 general elections. Now, he spoke to our Central Regional correspondent, GHOne.
The Ewutu East Constituency Secretary of the New Patriotic Party, Michael Addy, explained that representatives of all 5 presidential aspirants for the New Patriotic Party have engaged the police to address potential flashpoints in the constituency to ensure an orderly voting process.
Everything is set. All engagement necessary to facilitate the successful running of this election in the constituency is intact. We have engaged all reps representing the 5 aspirants in the constituency. The police has equally invited all these aspirants. The Electoral Commission has equally done so on the directive from the Presidential Election Committee. We had a fruitful deliberation. The police outlined the do's and don'ts on the election day to the hearing of all reps present on behalf of the aspirants.
He also highlighted the party's development record in the Ewutu East constituency, but admitted that growing mistrust among supporters remains a challenge, largely due to the keen competition among the 5 presidential hopefuls.
The Presidential Election Committee has communicated us as a constituency party, and we have equally relayed that information to all the aspirants that it is only the Ghana Police Service who has been mandated to offer security services on election day. For which reason the Ghana Police Service have equally also invited us, and then they outlined their duties and functions on the election day. They have also promised us that they will do all within their means to ensure that as far as security is concerned, they offer us a top-notch service. So let me use your platform to appeal to the rank and file of the party in the constituency, mostly the delegates, that the environment will be free, safe, conducive for them to walk in and exercise their franchise, and then they can peacefully go home or hang around when the time is due for the vote to be counted. Then they witness it as observers. So I can assure you that everything is in order. The Electoral Commission is ready. The Ghana Police Service has equally reassured us that they are ready to offer a top-notch service. And so we are okay as far as security and accommodations are concerned.
So you're still watching news from here on GHOne television, and I will take a breather here and return with more stories. Kindly stay with us. Well, thank you so much for staying on with us here. This is Newsroom here on GHOne Television. I am Joshua Kodjo Mensah. Let's do some more stories. Member of Parliament for Gumwa Central, Kwame Asarabin, has called for the removal of term limits for presidential tenure. Now, according to him, presidents should be allowed to contest elections every 4 years for as long as they choose. He believes this approach would promote continuity in governance and contribute to the effective growth of the economy. He spoke to Sewami here on GH Today.
Since 1992, has there been one government that has performed better in the second term? There is no incentive to perform because they know they are leaving. So every government comes, first term, by Papa Bo, first term. Second term, they don't perform because there is no incentive to perform. Please, we have to remove term limit. Let them come back to us. Let them know that they can come back and beg us for votes. They will perform. Let's remove term limits. Let's keep it at 4 years. Every 4 years, go back to the people and go and ask for their support for another election. As we sit here, John Mahama is a very good guy because he knows that he's not going to contest again, but still he wants to leave a legacy. Who will do that? So if he's going to contest again, do you know what he will do? He will do more. Ghana is not at that stage. The democracy we are practicing now is democracy for developed countries. After you are finished developing, you experiment these things.
Well, Vice President Professor Nano Opoku-Agyeman says the reality of over 60,000 children living and working on Ghana's streets is a stark reminder of the work still to be done to address child poverty. Speaking at the government's strategic planning retreat hosted by the National Development Planning Commission, she highlighted persistent challenges, including poor birth registration, limited access to health care and education, and the denial of basic needs such as nutrition, water and sanitation, stressing that the problem demands a multifaceted national approach.
There are still obstacles to meeting child-related sustainable development goals by 2030, which is just 4 years ahead of us. There are over 60,000 children living and working on the streets in our country, mainly in the urban centers. Many of our children are not registered at birth. Many more remain deprived in terms of health, education, nutrition, water, sanitation, housing, and protection. Child poverty undermines health and learning and increases exposure to violence and exploitation. These challenges threaten our demographic dividends and aspirations, of course, for inclusive growth. If we fail our children today, we fail ourselves and Ghana tomorrow. There's not only a legal obligation under the Children's Act or the United Nations Conventions on the Right of the Child, but this is a moral imperative and an investment in the future of the nation. It was Nelson Mandela who reminded us that the soul of a society is revealed in how it treats children. Today, let us reveal the best of Ghana's soul by committing together to place the welfare of children at the center of our national agenda.
Well, Ghana's Minister for Foreign Affairs, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, has revealed that an average of 44 lives are lost daily to terrorist attacks across West Africa, with about 8 attacks recorded each day in the sub-region. He noted that between 47 and nearly 60% of global terrorism now occurs in the region. He described these threats as a grim reality confronting regional security. The minister made the remarks at the high-level consultative conference on regional cooperation and security here in Accra, attended by security chiefs from Burkina Faso, Liberia, Mauritania, Nigeria, Mali, and other countries in the region.
We meet at a time of considerable anxiety. On the average, there are 8 terror attacks every day in our region that on the average claims 44 lives every single day. The epicenter of global terrorism has moved from the Middle East to our region. We now account for at least 47 to 59% of all recorded global terrorism. The grave statistics continue that over the last 15 years, our region has seen an increase by 1,266% in terror attacks. And the death toll has also gone up by a staggering 2,860%. That is the grim reality we face. On my way here this morning, I received a call from my counterpart in Niger, indicating that they will not be able to join us this morning as they had originally planned because of an attack at their airport in Niamey last night, making traveling to Ghana impossible. So that is a reality. It's a daily, grim reality. And we cannot turn a blind eye because we are all at risk.
Away from that, government plans to regulate hostels across Ghana as it prepares to submit amendments to the Rent Act and Rent Control Law. Now, the Ministry for Works and Housing is spearheading the reforms to modernize outdated legislation, remove regulatory bottlenecks, and encourage private sector investment in rental housing. Speaking at the Government Accountability Series, the Sector Minister, Kenneth Gilbert Ajay, said the proposed reforms will prioritize tenant protections, particularly for low and middle income earners, and formally regulate hostels to ensure safer and more orderly rental accommodations.
The National Rental Assistance Scheme, established by the government in 2023 as a social housing program, aims to facilitate access to rental properties for qualifying beneficiaries by providing rent advance. The scheme is currently being piloted in 6 regions, namely Greater Accra, Bono East, Northern, Eastern, Western, and Ashanti regions. In 2025, the scheme successfully facilitated the payment of rent advance for 2,031 Ghanaians across its 6 operational regions, bringing the cumulative number of beneficiaries since inception to 4,732. I am glad to state that so far, the disbursement recovery rate is about 99%, indicating the government seed money is fully recoverable and in circulation. The program's eligibility criteria, application process, and beneficiary success stories highlight its effectiveness in addressing housing needs and enhancing community well-being, and government is poised to take the necessary steps in the short to medium term to scale up the operations of the scheme across all 16 regions of the country. The Rent Control Law 1986, PNDC Law 138.
Well, joining us for a conversation is President of the National Union of Ghana Students, Rashid Ibrahim, and he is joining us via Zoom. Rashid, thank you so much for joining us. So really, what do you make of the minister's submission when it comes to basically the issues that you've raised year on year with regards to hostel accommodation?
Okay, thank you so much. And then greetings to your cherished listeners and viewers. First of all, I would like to commend the government for this initiative taken to regulate wholesale prices in the country. Before this, there was a stakeholders engagement. During the stakeholders engagement, the National Union of Ghana Students were invited. Particularly, I represented the National Union of Ghana Students to submit our concerns how wholesale prices should be regulated. But it was considered. So we see this as a commendable effort. We commend the government for this great initiative, regulate wholesale prices in the country. We, as National Union of Ghana Students, this is not only just to applaud the government, but we are also making a proposition that when it comes to wholesale regulation forms part or plays a role in reducing the price of wholesale facilities. But there's also the need to also look at how we can actually reduce the deficit in the wholesale accommodation in the country. Why do we say that? You know, when prices are regulated, we live in a free market economy, whereby the market price of goods and services are determined by the influence of the demand and supply. Imagine wholesale prices are regulated now. What it means is that if the regulation goes a long way to affect developers, there will be little effort from developers in building student hostels. So we are also adding that the government should also go ahead to also bring some relief to developers, especially giving the developers some tax incentives to make sure that the cost of building or constructing a hostel also comes down. Not only that, we're also proposing that there must be public PPP, that is a public-private partnership, when it comes to hostel development. The universities have the land, the developers don't have the land. We must exchange and know that we are giving you the land, come and develop it. After the development, you build a hostel.
Right.
But land alone cannot be used to determine the price of hostels. Also, we are also saying that there must be some subsidies given to developers as well, right? Such as tax incentives and others. And then student-focused rent subsidy. We can even bring up a policy like students who perform well in academics to be given some relief when it comes to hostel prices.
Right.
So we commend the government for this great initiative. It is a good initiative. We, the National Union of Ghana Students, fully endorse it. But we are also recommending, we are also proposing that the government should also look at how we are going to bridge the deficit. We are going to bridge the hostel gap in our various sectors.
I get that point, Rashid. But then, are you planning on presenting these inputs to, say, the sector minister who made the announcement, so that at least it will not just be a conversation we are having here, but then strategically Nooks is positioning itself to make these inputs to make it the whole revision a lot better?
Okay, that's fine. I think from our last engagement that we had, that is during the stakeholders engagement, things like this played out.
Okay.
So I expect the minister to take it up. Although the bill has not been passed into an act yet. So whilst we raise this public awareness, it will also bring to the attention of the minister to consider it as well.
Right.
And I think that the minister will also consider it.
Okay. Rashid, thank you so much for engaging with us. And he is the president of the National Union of Ghana Students, also giving their inputs there to make rent, especially on the various campuses, a lot easier on the students. But away from that, Minister for Education, Haruna Idrisu, says Ghana must transition to digital education from kindergarten through to senior high school. He noted that the laptops and digital devices donated by an American foundation will equip learners at both basic and second cycle levels with essential digital skills. Now, the minister made the remarks at a brief ceremony held here in Accra.
The Ministry of Education received laptops and digital learning devices from the US-based GHOne Global Care Foundation to support Ghana's digital education, helping students build skills and improve learning, especially in underserved communities. Director of STEM Education at the ministry, Olivia Sewa Opari, says the donation will support about 200 learners to access information and develop critical digital skills, keeping Ghana competitive in the digital era.
This is a very kind gesture because there will be many more of such so that our learners can become empirical researchers, because where the world is moving, we shouldn't lag behind technology. So it's a way of helping our learners, our teachers, our educators to become digitally literate.
Minister for Education Haruna Idrisu thanked the foundation and partners, emphasizing proper use of the devices to ensure sustainable digital inclusion in schools.
Ideally, Ghana as a country should be moving towards smart education, from kindergarten through primary school to junior secondary to high school. We have no option than to go digital if we are to prepare for a competitive and rapidly changing technological world.
The ministry reaffirmed its commitment to advancing digital learning in Ghana, aiming to equip students with essential future-ready skills.
While you're still watching news from here on GHOne television, let's bring you business.
The Business Brief is brought to you by Compu Ghana, passion for technology.
Well, in business this afternoon, the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GHOTA, has expressed its dissatisfaction with the government's implementation of the local cargo insurance policy. In a statement, the union noted that despite their written request for an emergency meeting to discuss the implications of the policy, no response was received. Enforced under Section 222 of the Insurance Act 2021, which is Act 1061, and implemented jointly by the Ghana Revenue Authority and the National Insurance Commission, aims to protect shippers, safeguard importers' interest, deepen local participation to boost domestic insurance industry growth, and retain insurance revenues within the country's economy to foster long-term industry development. However, GHOTA insists that the implementation lacks broader stakeholder engagement, indicating that the business community cannot be coerced into purchasing insurance services, as this undermines the principles of free market economies. Now, the union is therefore calling for the immediate suspension of the policy, which comes to effect on the 1st of February 2026, for a broader stakeholder engagement. Well, let's speak to the first Vice President of GHOTA, Joseph Paddy. Mr. Paddy, thank you so much for joining us. So really, what are the concerns here?
Thank you very much once again. And let me say a good afternoon to your viewers and online. Recently, NIC, the National Insurance Commission, came out with a release that from 1st February, the CIF, in the importing, what we have is CIF, cost and insurance rate. So everything is put in there. But they're saying that now the insurance aspect is going to be paid in Ghana here to Ghanaian insurers. But what we're saying is that our workings, the way we do our business, most time we go out there abroad and we have about 120 days credit, some 90 days credit. and we don't even pay a dime to our suppliers. And therefore, the suppliers have influence on our product, and they have interest in the product that we import. And therefore, they want to import, they want to, insure the product before it comes here. So if you are now asking us to pay here, then our suppliers will say, if that is the case, then we are not giving you the goods because they have about 99% interest in the goods that we import here. Not coupled with that too, there was no stakeholder engagement that they are going to introduce this by NIC. And what we're saying about this, our local insurance companies, are that most times when we ask them to come to the market space to come and insure our shops and our products, they tell us the areas of operation is a high-risk area, and therefore they don't want to come in. But you are ready to insure the product that is coming by sea to the country. But rather, when the goods get to our shop, you are not ready to insure them. So what we are saying is that, and we know in the whole wide world, the most safety and safest way of travel is by sea.
Right.
And therefore, they're looking on the low-hanging fruit. But instead of them coming to the market space to insure our shops, they are not interested in that. But they wanted to insure, do the insurance here, whilst we are importing from outside.
And so you want a suspension of that particular policy?
Exactly so. We want this to be suspended. Let's have stakeholder engagement, and then we can make these policies. Where we also come out to tell them what happens when we do our trading. Because if your supplier has an interest in whatever he's bringing down to you, and he wants to insure in his country because he has a contract with the insurance company there, and he can get it cheaper and affordable, why would he want him to come and do it here? So these are the difficulties we have. Yes.
Mr. Paddy, thank you so much for your time. That's Joseph Paddy. He is first vice president of GHOne, bringing us to time now for sports.
Business Brief was brought to you by Ghana, passion for technology.
Welcome to sports. We begin with the news from CAF, where CAF disciplinary board has rejected protest that was filed by the Royal Armed Forces or the Royal Federation against the Senegalese counterparts about rules of violation on the AFCON final game. CAF has ever penalized both federations and some players, and of course, the coach as well. The Senegal Federation is to pay US dollars $300 for team supporter misconduct and player walk-off, and then $15,000 US dollars for the misconduct of his national team due to the 5 of his players having received cautions. Coach Papi Thiaw has been fined $100,000 US dollars and with a 5-match ban as well. Now players Ilman Sheikh Baroy and India Issa will serve 2-match official bans. Morocco, on the other hand, had their captain Ashraf Hakimi suspended for 2 matches, with one of these matches being suspended for 1 year from the date of the decision for his unsporting behavior in the game. Ismail Sabari suspended for 3 games as well for CAF matches, and also $100,000 US dollar fine imposed on him. The federation in Morocco have been fined $200,000 for inappropriate behavior of their stadium ball boys during a aforementioned match, with a fine of $100,000 for the improper conduct of the national team players and supporters. Another $15,000 fine for the use of lasers by the supporters of the Moroccan team during the final game between themselves and Senegal.
Bye. It's not bad.
So let's talk about the UEFA Champions League. This phase is now done in a Champions League. From last night, 18 games were played. Let's check out the results. Now, the results on your screens now: Ajax losing to Olympiacos. We had Arsenal defeating Kairat. Bilbao lost at home to Sporting CP. Atleti lost to Bodo Glimt by 2-1. Dortmund lost to Inter 2-0. Barca were too good, 4-1 win over Copenhagen. Benfica beat Real Madrid by some 4-2 margin. Club Brugge also won 3-0 against Olympique Marseille. More results of games: Leverkusen also won 3-0 against Villarreal. Liverpool were good, 6-0 they won against Karabakh. also won 2-0 against Galatasaray. We had Monaco drawing with Juventus goalless. Napoli lost to Chelsea by a 3-2 margin. Pafos won 4-1 against Slavia Praha. PSG drew 1-1 with Newcastle. And then PSV Eindhoven lost to Bayern Munich by 2-1. Union Saint-Gilloise beat Atlanta by some 1 goal. Tottenham Hotspur won their game 2-0 away against Frankfurt. Let's look at the table. Final table for the league phase. Now from 1 to 8. They have qualified round of 16 straight away. So Arsenal, Bayern, Liverpool, Tottenham, Barca, Chelsea, Sporting Lisbon, and City, they've qualified automatically to the knockout stage. Now from 9th, Real Madrid, Inter Milan, PSG, Newcastle, and the other teams that follow will now have to go and play in the playoffs. There they are. Juventus, ATM, Atalanta, Leverkusen, Dortmund, Olympiacos, Club Brugge, Gala, Monaco, Karabakh, Bodo, and then Benfica. The line has been drawn, 24th position. From then, those who are below, Marseille going down, they are out. They are out of the Champions League. But the teams from 9th to 24th will play the playoffs. And the draw for the playoffs will be held this Friday to determine which team takes on which team. And of course, Giants of European football, Madrid, they are in there. Yesterday they were 3rd. Today they finished 9th after the group phase or the league phase was done last night in European football. And that's it for us, of course, in sports. Up next is international news.
Bloc ECOWAS on Wednesday lifted all remaining sanctions imposed on Guinea following the 2021 military coup after the recent election of former junta leader Mamadi Doumbouya. ECOWAS had imposed a series of sanctions on the mineral-rich but economically challenged country after Doumbouya overthrew President Alpha Condé in 2021. In February 2024, the bloc eased some of those measures by lifting restrictions on financial transactions with its member institutions. Now, following what ECOWAS described as a successful holding of a constitutional referendum in September and a presidential election in December, the bloc announced the immediate removal of all residual sanctions against Guinea and individuals involved in the coup. Now, this decision fully reintegrates Guinea into ECOWAS decision-making bodies and other regional activities. ECOWAS also congratulated Doumbouya on his election. Doumbouya was sworn in as president earlier this month before tens of thousands of supporters and several heads of states. Well, that's all in this package for Newsroom today. Grateful for your company. I am Joshua Kodjo Mensah. Do have a wonderful afternoon.